No one wants to believe that they could be the victim of an attack. But statistically speaking, 1 in 3 women will be at some point in their lives. And our guest today is on a mission to change that statistic. At just 20 years old, Tiffany Armstrong fought off an attacker using the 3 basic self-defense moves that she knew at the time. But this attack lit a fire in her. She went on to earn 2 different second-degree black belts and develop an online street-smart self-defense curriculum for women. She shares so many simple tips in this interview, things that can not only increase your personal safety, but that I believe can also increase your confidence and your leadership in a multitude of situations. This interview will seriously be such an important one to share with every single woman that you love. So let's get started. Welcome back to the show. I have the honor of sharing with you today one of my favorite women, and she is fierce. She is so many things, but fierce is like the number one word that I am channeling for her lately. So please help me welcome Miss Tiffany Armstrong. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
I was like, I'm so still in event mode. I realized I was just teeing you up there as though I'm like inviting you to stage. So maybe that was a premonition for you.
Okay. I'm open to that. We have that grand entrance. We just need the music cue in. And that's
you do. Oh my gosh, that would be so fun to do on a podcast. Have like intro music for the intro. Yeah, we'll work on that. That would be amazing. So I feel like I've had a front row seat to your growth and your transformation over really the last few years that you and I have known one another through mutual friends, but it's been especially profound within the last 6 months. I wasn't really even planning to go there, but I'm going to go there just because I think this is so representative of what we want women to know is that, your business and your mission have really grown as you've invested in yourself.
Oh, yes.
Why don't you share a little bit of what this journey over the last few months have looked like?
Absolutely. So, yes, I would say completely life-changing is the best way to word that for me. And so getting into the shift process and the story branding and everything that you set up. So basically what it was, can I explain what you're talking about?
Oh my gosh. Well, yes, you can totally talk about that. I even meant, you've just been investing in yourself left and right, but you did, we will kind of keep everyone in the loop here. You were a part of our pilot program for the Soul, Style, and Strategy, our inaugural little group that we did. And yes, so, part of that, of course, I've literally had a front row, but even beyond that, you've been just investing in yourself so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was one piece of what I invested in was that transformation process, but also, just really, I had this on my heart, my whole mission. I had this on my heart for the last 6 years, but I was just stopping myself out of fear for a lot of different reasons. And actually being part of the Powerhouse Women community was a big piece of what got me out of my own way because I saw other women doing what I wanted to do. So it was being modeled right in front of me. But genuinely, I finally got past my fear of just taking a leap. I invested a lot of money and I invested a lot of time into my own, just my own personal development. And I went to, forever ago, I went to a Tony Robbins Business Mastery course. And he said that 80% of the success of a business falls on the psychology of the business owner or the leader, whoever is in charge. And so I thought if I were ever I had a failed business in the past. I learned so much from it. And what I realized is if I ever were to dive headfirst into a business again, I had to put my own personal development, my personal growth first. So I can be that leader that I always wanted someone to lead me when I was an employee or when I was going through a process. So just really to be that woman who can step into her own power and make a worldwide impact, I had to work on myself to get there.
Oh, that's so true. And it fits in really well with what you have chosen to pursue. And so I want to create some context here for listeners as we dive into today's content, that your personal story, like so many of us, your personal story is really what inspired your purpose. And yours was something that was quite I'm like lost for the word. But it was an experience that was really scary. It was life changing, not in the way that we would want it to be life changing, but you took that purpose or you took that experience and you turned it into your purpose. So do you want to share a little bit, take us back to that experience in your 20s, and then how, fast forward to today, it's inspiring the work that you are doing with women?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yes, gosh, back when I was about 20 years old, I was actually taking a kickboxing class. I had to lose weight back then. I had to put on my college pounds, so I was going to work out. And in the kickboxing class at the very end, this gentleman walked in. He was the owner of the dojo, and he showed us 3 very basic self-defense moves. And I had never taken any self-defense. I knew how to punch a bag, and that was all I knew at that point. And that was for weight loss. So he showed us these 3 moves. So that's just to preface what I'm about to get into. That's all the self-defense I knew at the time. So I was a waitress, and there was a couple of my friends who decided to go to a friend of theirs' house, and they invited me to go along. So I said, of course, you're in college, you just go hang out with people, right? Didn't have much fear back then of that kind of stuff. So I went to this acquaintance's house, and so this was in the boonies, farmlands of Wisconsin. It was one of those houses you walk into, and there's not another house for a mile or two. It was just this house plopped in the middle of a big field, where if any of you are from Wisconsin, you know what I'm talking about. So we were in this house, and there was about 12 of us there sitting around in the living room, and we were there for about an hour. So the time gets a little foggy for me, but we're sitting there, and so there's this group of couches. So I'm sitting, and all of a sudden the door slams open behind me. So we all jumped because it was loud, but I jumped, and I turned around, and I looked behind me, and in walks this man who about 6'4", large guy, oversized sweatshirt, but he didn't look drunk. He looked like he was on drugs. So you could just kind of get that different vibe where they just literally can't make eye contact, and they're looking off in the distance. So my initial reaction was, holy crap, that guy is scary looking. But keep in mind, this was an acquaintance's house, so I didn't know who belonged there. And so I thought, well, maybe this is the brother coming home. So I didn't know. My gut was like, whoa, this guy's scary. But I wasn't 100% positive that something was off until I turned right back around, and I saw the look on everybody's faces. And they, if you could even imagine, the panic you see, when you're watching a scary movie, for example, the panic on people's faces, that is genuinely what that looks like in real life. It's just this look of just pure panic. And I thought, oh my goodness. And so as I'm processing the fact that this man doesn't belong here, as I'm processing that, he's walking around the couches, and he makes his way past several of my friends, and he just flops on the couch right next to me, on top of me, really, sticks his hand on my shirt and starts just licking my neck, just all up on me. He's a large man. I had no idea what to do. This was nothing, obviously, that I'd ever learned anything about. And so all I know is I glanced at everybody, and nobody moved. There was men there. There was women there. One of my friends was a 4th-degree black belt. Panic and frozen in fear, which is why I teach something of what I teach with the mindset. But so I didn't know what to do. So I just had to use my instincts. And so I didn't want to shove this guy, because I didn't know if he had weapons or how intense he was willing. I just lightly tapped him off of me, and I said, hey, I'm trying to use my brains here. So I just said, hey, it doesn't seem like anybody knows you here, but we have a ton of food and alcohol and beer. And, if you want to just take that, we'll send you on your way, in a sense, like a care package. Said that. We'll wrap it up in a boat for you. But he actually took us up on it. So he stood up. We started piling food on his plate, and he shoved a whole bunch of beer in his pockets, and he walked out with literally a plate of food. And we were like, oh, my gosh, that was insane. So we went around, locked all the doors. Being a 20-year-old group of people, we did not call the cops. I don't know why. I still look back and wonder why we didn't, but we just thought this guy wandered in and we got him out of the house and we were better. So we went and locked all the doors, and I do remember somebody asked, did you lock all the windows? And he said, well, we live in a ranch, so we never ever unlock our windows. So nobody checked the windows. So that was the first part of the attack, if you will. And so we're sitting there processing all of this. And I'm thinking it was about a half hour, 45 minutes later, I started walking down the hallway. So there's the living room where we were, this long, narrow hallway with a bathroom in it, and then the kitchen. So I was walking to the kitchen down this hallway, and out of nowhere, these two hands reach out of the bathroom. They grab me. They pull me in extremely aggressively to the bathroom. It was him. He had gotten back in the house, and he shut the door quickly, and he immediately just had me by my upper arms, and he was just slamming me, like really viciously slamming me up against that door, like putting holes in the door. And all I could think was, I need to stay conscious because he was hitting my head so hard. And the second thing, the only thing that popped into my head was, I don't know any self-defense except for those 3 moves, those concepts that I was taught. And that's all I could fall back on. And he was saying every terrible thing you could say to somebody, that what he was going to do to me, he was going to do terrible things, and he was going to, well, all the way up to murder kind of thing. And then he wanted to find my family. So he was a horrific, horrific person, and on drugs, probably not feeling much pain. So all I thought, and I barely thought, but all I thought, my instincts kicked in and just thought, I'm just going to try these 3 moves. I don't know what else to do. So I got out of his grips, like I got his hand off of me to free my arm up, and then I distracted him low just to get his brain to think. So I just ended up striking him in the face, and his head snapped back, and he ended up falling, and it was enough to get me out of the room. So I was able to get out of the room, and right then and there, my 4th degree black belt friend, who had panicked before, he was walking down the hallway, and he just saw blood all down my arms, and he said, "What is happening?" And I said, "He's in here." And so anyway, he grabbed the door and held it. And a little side note, I always say, my friend, I asked, like, I think months later, why he held the door this way, but he held the door, but he held it sideways, so his body was against the wall, and he was holding it so kind of sideways to the door. And later I asked why he held it that way, and he said, well, we didn't know if he had a gun, and if I was holding the door on the other side, he would assume that I was just on the other side of the door and shoot at me. I thought, wow, that's fascinating. I never thought about that. But the police came, and this man had been wanted for 2 rapes, successful rapes, and an attempted homicide. And so he was the real deal. He obviously went off to prison. And 2 things was, first of all, he was casing the house. Like, the police said that he was standing outside the house for about an hour or so, looking in at us, which is so creepy. But what he was doing was he was choosing who he wanted to attack. And so he had chosen me out of everybody there, which is why I dove so deeply into this field of victimology, because I needed to understand why he chose me out of everybody there.
Right.
But the successful part is later I found out that I broke his nose. In the whole scheme of things, when I had thrown my hand up in his face, I didn't know, I wasn't sure what was happening. I just wanted to get his face away from me, and it ended up breaking his nose. I don't think he felt it, but I'm sure later after his drugs came down, he definitely felt it.
Sure.
He went off to prison, and that was the story. So it was the scariest thing I've ever been through in my entire life. But I came out with just some scratches on my arms and a little bit of head stuff. But I survived with grace.
Well, and it has fueled a purpose that you probably never imagined you would dedicate your life to, but it surrounds helping other women be prepared should they ever be in a situation where they would need those moves, even though none of us like to think of ourselves as being someone who would ever be in that position. You and I always have the conversation of, yeah, but what if we were? Wouldn't you rather in a situation know that you're prepared with even just the basics? So
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the mission that this has fueled and the work you're doing now. And then, of course, we're going to get into so many other things.
Of course. Absolutely. And I consider this a life skill, just like we learn to drive. You know what I mean? This is, you want to drive safely. We want to lead our lives safely. And so, God forbid something happen. It's just so amazing to be prepared if somebody, like an attacker, were to approach you. And so what this has fueled in me is teaching street smart self-defense. I ended up diving into martial arts right then and there. The second after I was attacked, I was like, sign me up. I need to learn more. But it wasn't, I have such a high need for contribution. So do you, obviously. And so I needed to understand exactly how to defend myself so I could teach others to do the same. Because if 3 moves saved my life, I mean, what could a whole bunch do? And me being able to spread that's such a ripple effect. So I dove in and got my 2 different second-degree black belts in street smart self-defense. And so I've been teaching and educating on that along with all aspects of personal safety for about 20 years. And what I was finding is I couldn't reach enough people. Just, doing the one-on-ones and the small groups and 6 people here. And I've done school assemblies and things like that in front of 3,000 people. I mean, there's different levels of what I've done, but I felt such a need to reach the masses with this because not everybody can go into a dojo, for example. And so I felt so called to figure out a way to create a platform where people can learn, women can learn, and their families can learn street smart self-defense right in their own homes with their families. They can practice with their families. And I think that the skills of the actual self-defense techniques, that's probably about 60% of what I teach because, yes, if a person were to lay their hands on you, isn't it amazing to know exactly what to do? Have a planned response, not like this reaction, you know what I mean? We want to be able to, I know exactly what I would do if a man grabbed me in this way versus that way versus if he had a weapon, for example. And be able to defend your family if you're with your children, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So I have such a huge passion for that piece is the actual techniques, but also on the same level is really understanding, first of all, how to wipe yourself off the victim list in the first place, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And how attackers are choosing their victims, because that is half the battle, but also all aspects of personal safety. Like if an intruder were to come into your house, knowing exactly where you'd run in your house, with your family, whatever it may be, what phone app you would push a button on real quick and it would GPS locate you and send signal to 911, and all these things, what tools you would have in place, how burglars case homes, all of this has to do with personal safety. And so I don't just teach the techniques, I teach the mindset, and I teach all of the other aspects of personal safety too, because it's not just about a self-defense technique, it's about understanding how to de-escalate situations and everything like that. So it's a full circle of personal safety because it things can happen on so many different levels. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Levels. Mm-hmm.
And we're going to share at the end all of the resources you have. You have some incredible free resources, Facebook community, other programs launching soon. So we'll make sure to get into all of that. But I remember this was years ago. I was even trying to pinpoint the exact timeline. It was at least a few years ago, and you were really starting to step into this purpose, share your message more and more. And it still stands out in my mind, a presentation you gave where you talked about the research study and the psychology behind almost this victim mentality. What has someone be more likely to be attacked, which I think actually it has parallels for even how we show up in business, in life. So do you want to share a little bit about that study and what they found?
Oh, absolutely. This is one of the first things I found after I found out that my attacker had chosen me. This was one of the first research studies I came across, and I was like, ooh, it was just mind-blowing to me. So basically what it was these 2 researchers went into a prison, and they asked a whole bunch of convicted criminals who had attacked people. They asked these convicted criminals to sit down one at a time and watch this video of people walking down the busy streets of New York. And the researchers asked one question. Just literally, their whole focus was one question. And they said, who would you choose as victims? Out of all the people you see, who would you peg? All of them. Who would you peg as your victims? Like, who would you put on your victim list? And what was so fascinating, 2 parts, is that one, is that almost every single criminal chose the exact same people. And so there was like, what the heck? There's a pattern here of all these different types of criminals. So it's not like they have a type each.
Right.
They were looking for patterns in these people. And so what was interesting is that they asked, obviously, a follow-up question of why did you choose those victims? And all of the criminals, the top two things that they said was, number one, and this is the common sense one that we all could come up with on our own, but the first one is that the person was distracted. So obviously they're looking down, even deep in conversation with another person. An attacker will attack two people if they're both severely distracted by the conversation. So it just kind of depends on what's going on. So number one was that the person was distracted. But number two is the one that blew my mind. It was that these people already looked like they had victim mentality, meaning they were looking defeated, they were looking overwhelmed, their breastbone was down, they were shuffling their feet, they had a look of frustration on their face or overwhelm. And I mean, it was so much about just how they were carrying themselves. And the part that blew my mind was that they chose large men, tall, large, hefty, strong men. They chose them as some victims and did not choose some petite women. So it wasn't about the size.
Right.
It wasn't about the gender, race, or age. It was all about how each person was carrying themselves. And so when just those two things, I mean, if you could truly put your distractions away, and if you can just literally just lift your breastbone and look people in the eyes, not in a combative looking kind of way, because we want to still have friends in the world, but if you can just lift your breastbone up and in a very confident manner, look people in the eyes and acknowledge them, or just, kind of that ICU kind of personality or vibe, it's amazing how many victims or how many attackers you'll be wiping yourself off the victim list of. Anybody who's casing you, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's so powerful.
Wow. And I mean, I'm a big believer in just the psychology of body posture and the physiology that's involved with that. And it's fascinating to realize, I remember you sharing that for the first time, and it made me so much more aware of how I was operating out in public. Was I distracted? How was I walking? But we were talking just earlier, I think this parallels quite a bit to the business world and, how we show up in a business meeting, in a negotiation. Can you talk a little bit about, just because you've done so much research on this, just how our posture and some of these same elements affect other areas of our life too?
100%. So first of all, there's a whole science behind it. When we sit tall, I mean, I invite anybody who's listening right now, go ahead and sit tall for just a second and think about the words that come to mind here. And it's typical that I hear things like unstoppable, powerful, energetic, confident, whatever words come to mind. But when you're sitting tall like this, you're giving off a vibe to other people. So first of all, within your own body, it releases cortisol or testosterone. It releases testosterone, which is that power hormone, right? And all of us have it. And it lowers cortisol, or stress hormone. So just by sitting tall, that does that within ourselves. But what that is, and we all know we're energy and we give off energy, and people pick up on our energy. We all know that person when you sit in a room. This is how I felt about you recently at the Powerhouse Women. When Lindsay walks in the room, everybody just takes notice, because there's just such a powerful and peaceful. There's just something so powerful about that posture that you walked in with specifically. But we all know that when you're sitting in a room and somebody walks in and everybody just kind of takes notice, what they're doing is they're giving off that vibe that everybody is so attracted to, in that kind of way, because it's like, wow, they are so confident. I like that. I want that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to business, there's so much research where if people are slouchers, if they curl, and you're a leader. So let's say you're a leader and you're leading a business and all your employees are looking to you in your staff meeting or whatever it may be, and you're slouching, it immediately lowers your authority. It lowers their belief in you to be a leader. And
Wow.
So think about that with like a negotiation then, so maybe you're not the leader in this situation. Maybe you're negotiating with someone. Just by lifting your breastbone, not looking cocky, but just lifting your breastbone, you can negotiate such higher rates or such better situations because you are giving off that vibe, and you are giving off the vibe that you are an authority, you're credible, and they trust you. It increases people's trust in you as a leader or whatever it may be. So yes, this is powerful in business. And I notice if I'm kind of diving down in my own posture sometimes because I haven't had lunch. I ate at late lunch, for example. The second I catch myself, I lift back up, even if I don't want to, because I know that drives me forward in lots of different business aspects.
And one of the things, I don't remember where along the way I heard it. I think I've heard it in several different applications, but how even if I'm not feeling, let's say, confident, right? Maybe that's something I think in general, everyone would love to feel more confident going into any situation. And even if I'm not feeling those internal feelings, how I can start with the posture of my body,
Yes.
how I hold my body by changing that, or by standing up taller, or even sometimes if I really need some confidence before stepping on stage or something like that, even doing some jumping jacks or like getting some blood flowing, getting some energy flowing through my body, that actually starts to have me feel more feelings of confidence. So that was really eye-opening to me, was to realize that my body physiology could dictate my emotions and how I felt, how I wanted to feel.
Absolutely. And that is extremely researched at this point. And there's some brilliant TED Talks on that subject where before a speaker goes up on stage, they go into the bathroom stall and they put their arms up to the sky and they like reach up, lift their chest. Because it shifts the actual hormones in your body.
Yeah.
And if you've ever heard psychologists talk about if you're in a bad mood, you should smile, even though I'm smiling right now.
I know.
But what that does is it literally in your body, just by raising the corners of your mouth, even if you're just mad and cranky and whatever else, overwhelmed, just by smiling, it shifts the hormones in your body. And what can actually happen is as you smile, you might even start laughing or something along those lines. But so if a smile can simply shift your mood, posture is major. I mean, there's so much research on showing how can you shift. And Tony Robbins talks about that all the time, how you can change in a quick heartbeat. And he always starts, his first step is starting with posture.
Yes.
And we all have the capability of shifting our state within a second. The joke or the funniest thing I heard from him was, he said, if anybody thinks that you can't shift your state quickly, well, here's the example. And he said, let's say you're arguing with your spouse or you're in a really big funk and you're like, you're bickering back and forth. And then all of a sudden your phone rings and you're like, hello, and you just like suddenly, shift.
That is so good.
And we are all capable of shifting our state. And the first thing to start with always is posture. And then I put on good music too. I put on a powerful song that empowers me.
Yeah.
My body moving or just lifting. And it can, when I'm tired, the first thing I do is posture and put on an amazing song that's empowering. And it's like I took a jolt of caffeine. It's fascinating.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love this because, we want to, through this interview, arm women and men, I think there's men listening too, arm people with the information they would need if they're ever in a situation where they would need some street smart self-defense.
Mm-hmm.
However, I really want people to get that these are aspects that absolutely play into every area of your life. You want to feel more confident. You want to be more successful. So I hope, that alone, just being conscious of your body posture and how you're holding yourself. There are some amazing TED Talks. I think the one that comes to mind is with Amy Cuddy, and she talks about the Superwoman pose. So we can always link that below. But if nothing else, that alone, if you're conscious of that, not just for your own personal safety, but for your own success and vitality in life, is probably the biggest takeaway we can offer anyone, because It does make that big of a difference. It really, truly does.
It does. And for years, I was a postural therapist as well. I don't know if you know all my little things that I've done in life, but one of the very interesting things is when I would be working with a patient and they would be sitting in just a tough, maybe a little bit of a victim mentality because they were hurting and they were in pain, and understandably so. But the first thing, and this was on purpose, the first exercise I would do with them as we were still talking, I would put them against a wall with their arms straight out to the side, their whole back was against the wall. and their legs were spread a little bit, and they lifted their chest up against the wall, and they would do an exercise like that. And it was so fascinating that I would be talking to somebody and they'd say, I'm in so much pain, nothing seems to be getting better, whatever was happening. And all of a sudden I'd put them in that posture and we'd continue the conversation. They're like, but it's not as bad as it was last week. And all of a sudden they became more resourceful. All that changed was their posture in the moment, and all of a sudden their thinking became more resourceful. And if you think about applying that to business, so we all have fear in business. I mean, all of us have fears come up, and we can get in our own way sometimes. And the goal is to get in our own way less, and those times be less. I'm a master at avoiding self-sabotage at this point because I've studied it so much. But when you can just shift your posture in those moments of fear in business and just keep driving forward, it's amazing how much more productive you can be, how much more your team respects you. There's so much goodness that ties to business with posture.
So one of my favorite things about following your journey is just like this example, you give so many just tangible tips that have me rethink everyday situations, whether it be something to make me feel more confident, like what we're talking about, or just something to make me more aware in situations throughout my day where maybe I don't realize that I'm making myself an easier target, or how to just be safer when I'm filling my car up with gas, you name it. Your Facebook group and so many places that you share these little snippets they've really stuck with me. And I would love, we're going to obviously direct people to plug in to everything you have that's available, but what are maybe your top 1 to 2? Like if you could give people just 2 scenarios where if they were equipped with a different awareness, just a different habit, that it could make a huge difference in terms of their personal safety, what would your top 1 to 2 be?
I would say that's a fantastic question. And I would say, one of the videos that I did that went viral, so it went viral for a reason because people just took this tip in like crazy. And so the tip was that when you go to a gas station or your mailboxes and things like that, so many cars are programmable, not all of them, but almost all of them are programmable. So I'll preface it with this because that's always one of the questions I get about this. But let's say you pull up to the gas station, and a lot of cars are programmed that the second you put your car in park, all of the doors unlock, all of the doors. And so what happens then is you get out and you start pumping your gas. Well, all of your car doors are unlocked at this point, right? So if you have a child in the car, if you have your purse in the car still, or obviously you're going to be getting back in. So the last thing you want somebody to do is reach and grab your purse, reach in, God forbid, and do anything with your child, or sneak in your car and wait for you to get back in, right? So what I recommend, and I joke that, yes, this calls for a little bit of manual labor, but when you park your car and if you hear all of your doors unlock, the first thing you want to do is immediately lock your car doors. And then you manually open just your driver's door if that's where the pump is. Otherwise, bring your key out and lock all the doors kind of thing if your gas tank is on the other side, away from your driver's side. So you want to lock all the doors, then get out just the driver's side so you know that no other doors are unlocked, so somebody can't steal your purse, somebody can't sneak in and be waiting for you and put a weapon against you kind of thing. So simple things like that. So that type of awareness can be applied to a lot of different situations. So yes, that's the gas pump and mailbox example, but if you really think about, anywhere you are in life, and I'm not talking paranoia, it's just a confident awareness, but just being aware of where you can look for habits that you do that could potentially draw an attacker in or give them an easy route to you. Because that concept can be applied to so many different situations in life. So as long as you have the awareness of wow, I didn't realize I left all my car doors unlocked. And these attackers are, and this is not meant to instill paranoia, but just the awareness, these attackers are so brazen. They do not care that the gas station is lit up. They do not care that the gas station has cameras. They will wait until you get out of your car, sneak right in, and then all of a sudden you're sitting back in and they're saying drive. You know what I mean? And they want to take you to a secondary location, which is a massive no-no. Massive no-no. You never go to a secondary location. So that would be a second tip, I guess. I'll flow right into that because let's just say, I don't care where you are, an attacker comes up to you and puts a gun to you. wherever you are, most likely you are somewhere closer to a hospital, you're somewhere closer to people, whatever it may be, right? If they want to take you to a secondary location, first of all, that's going to be on their terms. They're going to be taking you to a place that probably doesn't have a close hospital, probably doesn't have people close, but the gun does not magically disappear, right? So just because you're being compliant and going to the second location, the gun is still there, the weapon would still be there. So every ounce of research says that you are better off taking your chances and fighting for your life right then and there, even if somebody has a weapon to you, or running in a zigzag, all the funny things we've seen in movies. But because let's just say the attacker used a weapon on you, there's most likely going to be people around. You'll still have your cell phone on you most likely, and then also there's hospitals within driving range versus you going way off to their location of choice, right? The statistics go way down. So we have to fight for ourselves and fight for our lives, in that moment. And the whole thing that I talk about is having a plan, being able to respond. I know exactly what I would do if somebody walked up and they had a weapon or no weapon or whatever it was. I know exactly what I would do, and just having that peace of mind. So now thinking about attacking, attacks and stuff like that, it's not scary, and I don't walk around in fear. And a lot of us don't walk around in fear, right? But yeah. I sure do have that peace of mind knowing that if I were ever approached again in any type of an attack situation, I have the peace of mind knowing that I can handle that situation. That's exactly my mission. I want everybody to have that peace of mind knowing that they can handle it.
Right. If that ever were a situation we found ourselves in.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how much I adore you and am such a believer in everything you are creating, because this is information we need to get into the hands of everyone we love, male and female alike. And you're going to be having some ways that people can do exactly that. You have some amazing free resources. So will you share with us where people can find all of your tools, your resources, and how they can share it with the people that they love?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you were to go to my Instagram, right in my bio, I have a link, and it takes you to my link tree. It takes you to all the resources right there. So my Instagram is Tiffany_D_Armstrong. And so that is, if you just click on the link there. But basically I have a free self-defense online course. It is the foundation. It talks about staging your home properly. An intruder were to come in, it shows several different techniques. So it's self-defense basics for women is what it's called. So if you were to go to my website, tiffanyarmstrong.net, it's right there, right on the front page, and you can sign up for that and take that course right in the comfort of your own home. And then I have a private Facebook group, and this is women only, but it's called Feminine and Fearless, and we talk all things personal safety, all things women empowerment. And I share so many videos on these personal safety tips and things like that. So we have some really deep discussions in there. There's people getting out of domestic violence situations and all over the place. And there was a lady in India there's a man who approached her, and he was trying to rape her and give her do sexual assault. And by watching one of the videos that I had in that group, she put him down to the ground. He started crying, actually, and she was able to get away. So this is happening all over the world, and it's just been amazing. The stories that are coming through this group have been amazing. So that's called Feminine and Fearless.
And that's the group I was talking about, where I said, I'll just catch a video that you post or just this little nugget of information, and it stays with me. It's helped make me more aware. It's helped me rethink the habits that I go through my day with, and where I could just do little tiny things like get in the habit of locking the doors when I'm getting out to pump gas that could make all the difference if I were ever in a situation where I needed that. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing, so much for the purpose that you have tapped into, because it is saving lives. Like literally, your purpose is saving lives.
It is. I feel so blessed to be able to share this and even put a feminine twist on self-defense, because self-defense doesn't have to be super masculine, and it doesn't have to be scary and fear-based. And there's a lot of fear-mongering, and it's not. It actually can be kind of light and fun to learn this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, just have that confidence that, yeah, oh gosh, I can do that. And I have all these tips to help avoid the attack in the first place. And then, yeah, if this were to ever happen, I know exactly what I would do. Like, it just feels so good to just be able to say that in almost a nonchalant way.
And empowering, I can imagine.
Yes, absolutely. So
Mhm.
I so appreciate it. And I just love what you're doing to empower women. It just, I have been so empowered on my journey through you and through all of your different platforms as well, because I, I have this, the gift of knowledge of what I've been teaching with self-defense, but truly I had to make it into a business to be able to reach out to the masses. And so much of that and me getting out of my own way was through the community that you've laid out for everyone. So I want you to know how much I appreciate you.
Oh, well, I'm sending you love right back. And it's just an honor to have been a tiny part of your journey because you're already changing lives. And that's just going to continue exponentially as your course launches this fall and everything that you're doing starts to get into the hands of the masses because that's where it needs to be.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
So we're going to wrap this up. I could just talk to you all day long, but I'm going to just wrap up with one question. And obviously, you are such an integral part of this community. You know the heart and soul of Powerhouse Women. And so my question is, if you had just one message to give women to help them get out of their own way, get into action around their next big idea, what would you want to say?
I would say really do some deep thinking about what your zone of genius is, what lights you up, what piece, like when you're thinking about your mission, what piece of that lights you up the most? And then think about creatively outsourcing every other piece of it that you can, because that's what, when I say I had a failed business in the past, it's because I tried to do every single thing myself, and so much of it was against my grain that it stopped me and the business failed. And so with self-defense and all the creative stuff I get to do there, I know exactly what I'm very, very good at. And the things that I tend to procrastinate on, I stop. I look at that and think, am I procrastinating on this and should be doing it, or what? And most of the time, I actually creatively outsource it. So now I feel like I'm linking arms with multiple people and we're all walking down the street powerfully together. And that's why the business is driving forward so fast. So I would just say really, really dig into what lights you up. Take that time and don't have any shame about outsourcing the things that just aren't in your wheelhouse.
Oh, that is such vital information. I need that reminder from time to time myself. So, Tiffany, thank you so much for being here today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.